Part 2, back to you.
Okay, but we have to like start the regular way.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, all right.
Imagine
Whole new
somebody
episode.
didn't even watch the first one.
Hey everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my kitchen. I am in a cabin in the Hudson Valley. We've been shooting a round of episodes here, and it's really fun to come to you from this beautiful setting. Sorry, pastry bag. I'll start over. Hey everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my kitchen in the Hudson Valley. I've been doing some episodes from up here and really getting into the sort of colder months of baking. So today is actually an episode that's a part 2 episode. We did part 1 all about pâte choux, which is cream puff dough, where we made the dough. I showed you how to turn it into kosher. When do I have them? I was gonna say I have parties, but I never have parties. I have these at the dinner parties in my mind. And today is part 2, so I'm going to show you how to take that same base pâte choux and make 2 classic pastries. One is Eclair, the most delicious chocolate glazed, vanilla filled pastry, along with cream puffs, and I have a special twist on cream puffs to show you. So if you need a refresher on how to make pâte choux, because we have it already here ready to go, check out our first episode. It comes together pretty easily. You cook it on the stove, you beat some eggs into it. It is actually not very intimidating to make, and it does open up this whole world of possibilities of pastries that you can try. I think people really recognize Eclair. It is basically sort of a thin tube of the cream puff dough that we bake, fill with pastry cream, and we finish with a glaze. Profiterole is sometimes just filled with cream. It can also be filled with ice cream. You can choose, it's up to you. I'm gonna do these with cream, so they're pretty much a classic cream puff, but typically they're served on a little puddle of chocolate sauce. So I'm gonna make a chocolate glaze for the Eclair, and then I'm gonna thin it out, and that's gonna be our chocolate sauce for the cream puff. So we get kind of like a 2-for-1. This is everything we need to bake the cream puffs and the Eclair shells. I have 2 parchment-lined baking sheets. The smaller one is just for sort of a special little twist I'm gonna do on cream puffs. I'll just tell you what it is. We're gonna make them into swans. It's very fun. This is something I learned in culinary school, and it's like so ridiculous, but it's really fun. A beaten egg for egg wash, brush, and a fork. And the fork is because we do this kind of scoring pattern along the Eclair that help it rise and puff really evenly. I'm gonna start with the cream puffs, and that is just, all you have to do is pipe sort of even, uniform mounds of dough. So this is the cap from a spice jar. You can put it like this. So you can trace around this. When I'm at home, I often use a Sharpie. Here I just found a pen. Now a 1.5 inch diameter mound of dough will bake into a pretty substantially sized cream puff. So I'm just gonna space them maybe 3 across on the baking sheet. I'm gonna do half of this baking sheet cream puffs and then the other half Eclair. So I'll probably only do like a row of 3 by 3. I'm now going to make similar guidelines for the Eclair. So I have a ruler, and I'm gonna pipe them about 3 inches long. So I'm gonna pipe them sort of going horizontally. And I'm just gonna draw some lines to use as guides. And now I have the pen marks on the parchment paper, and because of that, I'm gonna turn it over. And I can still see the guides, just so I don't have dough in contact with the ink. So one thing I do, I take tiny dabs of the pâte choux, and I put them in the 4 corners of the baking sheet. Replace the parchment paper, smooth it, and press down in the 4 corners. And it just acts as anchoring points, so the paper doesn't move. Now for the puffs, I need a smaller opening than the Eclair. So I'm gonna pipe those first. I'm gonna start with about a 1/2 inch opening, eyeballing it. Now take the tip of the bag, and I like to hold it at about a 45-degree angle relative to the baking sheet. And I place it just on the edge of a circle, and you apply even, steady pressure until the entire circle is filled with the dough, and it should form this nice mound. Don't move the piping bag. We're not piping in a circle. We're keeping the piping bag steady and then letting the sort of extrusion like fill the circle. When I filled the whole circle, a little flick at the end to release the dough. So same thing. And then you get these nice even mounds. So obviously if you're making these for a crowd, you're gonna cover the entire baking sheet, probably do multiple baking sheets until you've used all the dough. We're just baking the one, and now I'm gonna turn it around and pipe my Eclair. And now I'm gonna snip a larger opening because I basically wanna pipe like one uninterrupted, solid kind of log shape. So now twisting the bag, this is about the diameter that I'm gonna have to pipe. So that same motion that you saw me use to sort of finish the puff, that flick at the end to separate, you're gonna wanna use that here as well. So starting right here. And once I get to the end, it's up.
Before you said don't move the bag.
Well, now we need to move the bag. Now you gotta move the bag, otherwise you're not piping a circle. So this is why it's important to have the proper texture for your pâte choux, because you need the dough to hold its shape. You don't want the mounds to like flatten into a puddle, so we want like nice high volume on our final pastry. So now we have to egg wash these. For cream puffs, I'm just gonna go plain. So just egg wash. I'm using a gentle touch because I don't wanna flatten them out very much. So just a dabbing motion. And you'll see it makes a big difference. You might notice as they puff up that toward the bottom where there wasn't any egg, it's matte and the rest of it is really shiny. So the shine is just very appealing. I have my oven preheated to 425. So the basic baking technique with pâte choux, it's usually a good idea to start with like a nice blast of heat to sort of initiate that puffing action from the eggs. And then you turn it down, and because you have to really bake these a long time to sort of dehydrate and slightly dry out the middle. Otherwise the steam inside can cause the puff to collapse. So we start at 425, turn down to 375, and let them bake all the way through. So we have everything covered with our egg wash. There's one final step only for the eclair. So I have a fork here. Now I'm gonna use it to drag the tines lengthwise along the dough, just sort of lightly scoring the surface. And this helps to create sort of natural points. It's like scoring bread that just like allow the dough to expand and puff in the oven in a more predictable way, following the pattern of the score marks, rather than like cracking and kind of splitting where I don't want it to. Sometimes you'll see people use a star tip. So it's the same idea, that you just want the eclair to be smooth and like not lumpy. You want kind of an even cylinder for filling. These are ready to go in the oven. And I'll also give this a rotation after about 20 minutes of baking. I expect these to take probably 30 to 35 total. Classically, an eclair has a chocolate glaze and a vanilla pastry cream filling. I'm gonna make the glaze. So here I have all the ingredients and just a saucepan and a whisk for putting it together. Semi-sweet chocolate, 6 ounces, 2 tablespoons sugar, 1/4 cup heavy cream, 6 tablespoons butter, pinch of kosher salt, and just a tablespoon of corn syrup, which helps keep the glaze nice and shiny. Everybody in, except for you. Heavy cream, 1/4 cup, 2 tablespoons sugar, 6 tablespoons unsalted butter. I mean, essentially what we're making is like a modified ganache. Ganache is a simple preparation of just heavy cream and chocolate, usually equal weights. But to this we're adding a little bit of the corn syrup, a little bit of cream, a little bit of sugar. So that was a pinch of kosher salt, a tablespoon of corn syrup, which I never measure out because it's annoying, so I just kind of eyeball it. Call that a tablespoon. Do you think that was a tablespoon?
Half of a tablespoon.
I think it was half of a tablespoon? You're probably right. Is that okay? All right, so we'll take this over to the stovetop. We want to melt the butter and we want to dissolve the sugar. So I'm going to kind of take it to the point where it's barely simmering and then remove it from the heat. We don't want it too hot because that could possibly cause the chocolate to break. As soon as I saw bubbles and saw that it came to a simmer, I'm taking it off the heat and I'm going to let it cool for probably about 30 seconds. You just don't want to add chocolate directly to like a boiling hot mixture because the intense heat can kind of shock the chocolate and then it separates, meaning the cocoa butter kind of like comes away from the other solids and you have this kind of like golden fat sitting on top. That's not what we want. So just go ahead and let it rest for a second. Release some steam. I'm gonna add my chocolate and I'm not really gonna stir it because I'm just gonna let it kind of sit there and then the heat from the butter mixture will slowly melt the chocolate and then I'll come back in a few minutes and stir it all together. Just kind of swirl it around. I waited probably like 3 or 4 minutes just for that chocolate to very gently and slowly melt. Then I stirred it Whenever you're making ganache or a chocolate glaze or anything that involves melted chocolate, it's always a good idea to start stirring sort of gently and from the very center. So you make these tight little concentric circles with the whisk and then work your way out. And you don't really want to like work a lot of air into it. You just want to stir until it's smooth. So you can see I have this nice glossy mixture. So I'm going to keep this in a warm spot so that it doesn't harden before we dip our eclair. My timer is about to go off, so I'll rotate the pan of the bacon cream puffs and eclair shells. Then, while that finishes baking, I'm going to whip cream for my cream puffs, and I already have over here some pastry cream for filling the eclair. It's a lot of moving parts. It's not that bad. We're losing daylight, so we gotta hurry up. This is 1 cup of heavy cream. I just pulled it out of the fridge because you cannot whip cream if it's not cold. This bowl is like a little small. It's better if you work in a wider bowl. You can also chill the bowl briefly if you want to. So whipping cream is just about working air into it. So if one arm gets tired, switch arms. You can see it's starting to thicken though. For cream puffs, I'm gonna go with a slightly stiffer whipped cream. Generally for like topping a cake or a pie or something, I go with a very droopy, soft whipped cream, but we really wanted to hold its shape for the cream puffs. So now I'm at the point of softly whipped. I'm gonna start to add my sugar. For a cup of cream, I would say maybe a tablespoon or 2. Depends on how sweet you want it. Remember, the pâte à choux has a tablespoon of sugar in the entire recipe, so it's not very much. So there's some sweetness from the chocolate sauce. So very often I use unsweetened whipped cream, but in this case, I want a little extra sugar. This is kind of like at a medium stiffness, where it holds the peak, but it's still a little bit droopy. I'm gonna stick this in the fridge until we're ready to fill our cream puffs. And then I just wanna show you here. This is the filling for the eclair. This is vanilla pastry cream. Check out our fruit tart episode where I show you how to make pastry cream. And just every time I make it, I just think of like, I love this thing. It's so delicious. So here we are. This is kind of what we were looking for, that smooth surface. So here's the trick that I use. Take a paring knife or just any kind of sharp knife to poke a small hole in the bottom of the puff, and then turn them upside down so that the hole is facing up. This is to release any steam that might be trapped inside. These seem pretty well baked. I don't think that there's any risk that these might collapse, but it's just a nice sort of insurance policy. And then 2 in each eclair, and I'm gonna let them cool upside down. It ensures that I have lots of area for filling in all of these. And I'm gonna set this off to the side. And now the very last thing before assembly, I'm gonna show you how to pipe and bake the necks for our swans. Anyone that's like, how is she gonna make swans? I promise, I thought the same thing when I was seeing the demo in culinary school, but it is really fun. I'm basically gonna pipe sort of 2 to 3 inch long, like S shapes. So really it's a question mark shape. These will bake very quickly. So I'm just gonna pop these in the oven, I would say less than 10 minutes. They just have to be golden brown.
You have to do it to 425 again?
Mm-mm. I don't really need these to puff, I'm not filling them. I just need the pastry to get crisp, and that's all.
And you don't have to egg wash those at all?
Nope. So I'm gonna start with my eclair. I have my filling right here, and I'm gonna make use of those holes that I poked to encourage some steam to escape. You need to sort of judge and gauge like how much you're adding. So I like holding it in my hand so I can kind of feel the weight of how much cream I'm adding, and I can sort of feel a little bit of the choux expanding in my hand. So hopefully what we have here, and based on the weight, I think is a completely filled eclair. This part's a little tricky. You don't want to like lose your grip. So I'm going to grasp it from the sides and just lower it into the glaze and then lift it out. Okay. So I'm going to let that set. I'm going to repeat with all my remaining eclair. By then the necks should be done, golden brown, and we move on to the final thing you can do with pâte à choux, which is make swan cream puffs. So while those cool, I'm gonna assemble the cream puffs. I have my whipped cream. I just want it to be stiff enough that I can sort of put a dollop of cream inside the puff and it's gonna hold its shape and stay nice and tall. So I'm gonna take a serrated knife. I'm gonna slice off the top of the cream puffs, sort of basically just cutting it in half. You can take a round cutter and make the top into a perfect circle. So I don't even have a cutter in this kitchen, but if you took like this is the top to another spice container, if you cut around it. I'm only doing this once, this is crazy. The rest are just gonna not be perfect circles. Slice this in half. These become the wings of our swan. I'm gonna grab a spoon and try to make a nice, generous dollop of cream. Pick the neck that you like the best. We'll go with this guy. So you tuck that right in there. The wings get stuck in like so. And now you have your cream puff swan, and she's gonna be swimming on a pond of chocolate sauce. Do I have to make more than one? So now we have here an array of 1 pâte à choux, 3 ways, our profiterole swans, our classic eclair, and our delicious cheesy gougere. I'm gonna taste an eclair because I haven't had a chance yet. I bite into it. It's just like 2 of my favorite things in the world. Vanilla pastry cream, pâte à choux. The shell itself has so many textures. It has crispy, crunchy outside, kind of toasted flavor, plus the sort of soft egginess of the interior, plus the creamy, dense, rich pastry cream. And then it like really finishes off with the kind of bitter sweetness of the chocolate. I understand why these are a beloved classic pastry. So this wraps up our 2-part episode about pâte à choux and all the things you can make with it. I hope you enjoyed watching and now see that it's a versatile dough that's really fun to make, and you can really just turn it into so many different kinds of pastries, both sweet and savory. So thank you for watching. Thanks for coming and joining me at the cabin. It's been really fun, and don't forget to like and subscribe.